The prairie wind swept sharp and cold across the barren land as the sun dipped beneath the horizon, spilling colors of gold, crimson, and fire into the sky. Dust twisted upward in thin, restless spirals, clinging to the faces of two fragile children who stood trembling in the open fields. Their clothes were torn, their small bodies weary, and their eyes carried the weight of fear far beyond their years. Life had already been unkind to them. The boy, just a few years older than his sister, pressed his lips together in determination as his gaze fixed on the scuffed boots of the men before him. He felt the crushing weight of every moment that had led them here. And then, gathering a courage far too heavy for a child, he spoke words that no child should ever have to utter. "Spare my sister," he whispered, his voice trembling yet unyielding. "Take me instead." A silence fell so deep it seemed the very earth was listening. The rancher, weathered by storms, hardened by loss, and buried under years of dust and loneliness, froze in place. He had not expected such a plea, not from a child. Yet those words pierced through him, awakening an ache he thought long dead, a forgotten spark of humanity that began to stir inside his soul. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the unshakable power of selfless love, please pause for a moment. Like this video, share it with someone who might need hope, and subscribe to Limitless Truth, where stories of love and redemption remind us that goodness still lives in this world. Your support keeps these stories alive. But the children's journey hadn't begun here. Their names were Samuel and Anna. Samuel, only 9, bore the weight of responsibility far beyond his years. Anna, 6, clutched a frayed little doll whose stitches threatened to give way, much like their lives had. They had lost more than many grown men could carry. Their father, once a strong ranch hand, had died in a tragic accident while taming a wild horse. Their mother, frail and sick, passed away during a merciless winter, leaving them with no one but each other. Since then, they wandered, hungry, afraid, and unseen. They searched for scraps, hid from those who would harm them, and prayed silently each night that someone, somewhere, might see them not as burdens, but as children desperate for love. One such day, their wandering feet carried them onto the sprawling land of a man known only as the rancher. He was tall, sunburned, and silent, with lines carved deep into his face. He carried a reputation as cold as the steel of his branding iron. Years ago, he too had lost his family, and since then, his heart had been locked behind walls no one dared breach. And yet, there they stood, Samuel and Anna, frail, dust-covered, their eyes filled with a plea too powerful to ignore. The rancher stared at them for a long moment, his heart warring against his mind. He had turned children away before. He had convinced himself he had nothing left to give. But there was something different in Samuel's steady gaze. Something bold, selfless, and unyielding, that cracked the iron shell around his soul. When Samuel whispered those words, offering himself in his sister's place, the rancher felt as though he was staring into a mirror of the man he once had been before grief turned him into stone. Days passed, and though he never admitted it aloud, the rancher could not drive them away. At first, he simply left food in silence, watching as Anna clutched her doll and Samuel waited until she ate before touching his own plate. He noticed the boy's quiet strength. How Samuel carried water, mended tools, and did small chores despite his thin frame. He noticed Anna's laugh, rare but sweet enough to soften even the hardest days. Slowly, without realizing it, the rancher began to feel something he thought he had lost forever, the stirrings of family. But it was not an easy road. The rancher's men, rough cowhands who had followed him loyally for years, grumbled at the children's presence. They muttered that Samuel and Anna were just strays, mouths to feed, trouble waiting to happen. One man even dared to say aloud that the rancher should never have let them stay. Samuel heard those words one evening while hauling buckets of water. His heart ached with shame. That night, as Anna fell asleep beside him, he whispered a quiet vow, that if the rancher ever sent them away, he would not beg, but he would protect her no matter the cost. That promise weighed heavy on his small chest, like chains of iron. But the rancher had heard him too. Standing outside the children's small room, he caught Samuel's whispers. and it broke him. This boy, with nothing in the world, carried more bravery, love, and loyalty than most men he had ever known. That night, the rancher lay awake, tormented by questions he had long buried. Could he risk opening his heart again? Could he be the father they needed, when memories of his own lost family still haunted his every breath? Or would he fail them too? The test came sooner than he expected. One evening, strangers rode onto the ranch. Men with eyes sharp with greed. They had heard of 2 wandering children and came with cruel intentions, hoping to take them and sell them off as labor. Samuel, still so small, stepped forward before the rancher could react. He spread his thin arms in front of Anna, and shouted words that should never belong to a child. "If you must take someone, take me." The ranch fell silent. Anna clung to him in tears. And the rancher, for a moment, stood frozen, watching this little boy stand against the darkness of the world. Something broke loose inside the rancher's chest. With a voice that roared across the plains, he commanded the men to leave. His hand gripped his rifle. His stance was unshakable. His eyes burned with a fire no one dared to challenge. The strangers, realizing his resolve, retreated in silence, the pounding hooves of their horses the only sound as they vanished into the dust. When the land grew quiet again, the rancher turned to the children. His hands shook, not with fear, but with the weight of a choice that had already been sealed in his heart. He knelt before them, his voice breaking with a gentleness he hadn't felt in years. He promised them they would never be alone again. From that day forward, they were his children, and under his care. No harm would touch them. Anna wept against his coat, clutching her doll between them, while Samuel, unable to hold back, let his tears flow freely. His small hands gripped the rancher's arms, as though afraid the promise would fade into the wind. But it was real. And for the first time in years, the rancher allowed his broken heart to love again. Seasons turned. Life on the ranch transformed. Samuel grew stronger, learning the ways of cattle and horses alongside the rancher. Anna's laughter filled the fields once more, her doll now lovingly stitched by the rancher's own hands. Even the men who had once doubted fell silent, some even smiling as they witnessed the change in their hardened leader. The rancher was no longer a man of stone. He was a father again. And in choosing to protect 2 orphaned children, he had found his own redemption. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the strength of sacrifice, the healing power of love, and the way kindness can awaken even the coldest soul, please like this video, share it with someone you love, and subscribe to Limitless Truth so more people can carry these stories of hope into the world. And before we close, I want to hear from you. What did this story make you feel? Did Samuel's courage, or the rancher's change of heart, stir something inside you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. You never know whose heart your words might reach. Because sometimes, all it takes is one act of sacrifice, and one act of kindness, to change everything.